Hi, my name is Bijal Shah and I am a bibliotherapist and founder of Bibliotherapy, a bibliotherapy and literary curation practice. I'm also the author of the book Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading. I curate book prescriptions and provide online training in bibliotherapy. More detail of this can be found on my website, www.bookotherapy.io. In this podcast, I share my knowledge and research on bibliotherapy, including the latest developments, science, and book recommendations. Join me every week where we take a deep dive into bibliotherapy. We release 2 episodes a week. Voice notes from me, your resident bibliotherapist, and Ask the Bibliotherapist, book recommendations for what's on your mind. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you'd like a bibliotherapist in your pocket, you might find my book, Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading, a helpful companion. It's available at any bookstore that you shop at. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and get new episodes as they're released. And as always, I love hearing from listeners. So if you'd like to get in touch, share any book recommendations or thoughts on bibliotherapy, you can do so at bijal@bookotherapy.io. Thanks for listening. Hi everyone. This week on Bibliotherapy with Bijal Shah, I am super excited to share my favourite books from this year that I would love for you to read in 2026 and let me know your thoughts and reflections. I have categorized them into different genres, from literary fiction to best sports books, to psychological books, to science fiction and fantasy, best translated works of literature, best young adult, even best food and cookbooks. So I hope there is something here for everyone, whether you enjoy fiction or nonfiction. I hope there is a book that connects with you and that you will be inspired to read over the holidays coming up. So, without further ado, let's get started. For best literary fiction, I have Twist by Colin McCann. McCann turns the invisible arteries of our digital world, undersea fiber optic cables, into a startling metaphor for human connection and fracture. This novel follows journalist Anthony Fennell aboard a deep-sea repair shop off the West African coast. McCann fuses reportage with lyrical fiction to explore how we connect, break, and try to mend both technology and ourselves. The novel's trio, Fennell, engineer-diver John Conway, and actress Fennell, are bound by loss and longing as they descend deeper into the ocean and their own emotional depths. McCann's prose is taut and shimmering, filled with lines that cut to the bone. Everything gets fixed, and we all stay broken. Both an adventure and a meditation, Twist captures the pulse of our wired, wary age, where repair is always partial and connection never quite completes. It's one of 2025's most resonant works of literary fiction, I personally feel. It's ambitious, timely, and quietly devastating. Next, I have Homeseeking. This is a novel by Carissa Chen. And in Homeseeking, Carissa Chen weaves a sweeping and deeply intimate saga that follows childhood sweethearts Suchi and Haiwen across 6 decades, 4 nations, and the upheavals of modern Chinese history. Their story begins in 1930s Shanghai, where music and dreams bind them, but war, displacement, and duty tear them apart. As Suchi emigrates to Hong Kong and the US, and Haiwen follows a very different path through Taiwan and eventually Los Angeles, the novel becomes a moving meditation on home, identity, and the ghosts of what might have been. With parallel timelines and shifting perspectives, Chen uses their separate lives to reflect the larger currents of migration, memory, and survival. The prose is luminous yet grounded, the characters both shaped by and resisting history. Hope-seeking doesn't just tell a love story, it probes what it means to belong, to carry loss, and to find a place in a world always in motion. It is a debut of remarkable scope, heart, and ambition. Third, I have Bad Nature. Ariel Courage delivers a gritty, darkly comic debut that begins with a startling premise. On her 40th birthday, corporate lawyer Hester receives a terminal cancer diagnosis and embarks on a driven road trip across America with one goal in mind: kill her estranged father. As her plan unspools, she picks up John, a passionate, young, environmental activist, and together they traverse landscapes of both physical decay and moral collapse. From luxury hotels to toxic Superfund sites, the novel clearly mirrors Hester's personal anger, alienation, and desire for vengeance, with the country's environmental and social failures making the journey as much about systemic damage as it is about one woman's trauma. Courage's prose is crisp, sharp, and unsettling, with a narrator whose detachment and cynicism are equally compelling and repulsive. Bad Nature is part road trip, part revenge thriller, part ecological lament, and it refuses easy resolutions, while still offering glimpses of connection and change. Next, I have the category of Best Science Fiction and Fantasy Books of 2025. Firstly, I have The Shattering Peace, a novel by John Kelsey. In The Shattering Peace, Kelsey returns to his beloved old man's war universe with energy and precision, delivering a smart, fast-moving space opera that balances big idea speculation with crackling dialogue. Set 10 years after the events of The End of All Things, the novel begins with an uneasy peace between humanity, via the colonial union, Earth, and the alien conclave. But all is far from stable. When a secret joint colony of humans and aliens vanishes without a trace, mid-level diplomat Gretchen Trujillo is drawn into investigating the advanced and inscrutable Khonsu, whose own civil war now threatens the entire galaxy. Scalzi keeps the stakes high, while remaining readable and sharp-witted. There's enough background to welcome new readers, yet loyal fans will recognize the deeper resonances in the series. With its blend of diplomacy, action, and alien philosophy, the book explores how fragile peace can be and how easily seemingly stable orders can unravel under the weight of superiority, mistrust, and hidden agendas. Under pressure, The Shattering Peace makes for a compelling pick. Second in this category, I have Red City, a novel by Marie Lu. In Red City, Marie Lu delivers a sleek, high-stakes adult debut that blends urban fantasy with crime drama in a dazzling alternate version of Los Angeles. At the heart of the story are two childhood friends, Sam, the daughter of a struggling single mother, and Ari, a gifted boy plucked into privilege, who discover they both carry the hidden power of alchemy and are drawn into competing syndicates, Grand Central and Lumines. These rival crime organizations control the city's elite through sand. a magical drug derived from alchemy that grants enhanced beauty, charisma, and power. Caught between their loyalties, their ambitions, and their complicated past connection, Sam and Ari navigate a world where trust is fragile and the cost of perfection is devastating. Lu's alternate, Angel City, is both glamorous and brutal, each magic-fueled confrontation reflecting deeper questions about class, identity, and the illusions of self-improvement. With its pace, intrigue, and moral complexity, Red City is as much a love story of fractured friends as it is a war tale of power, identity, and survival. It's a sumptuous, seductive read, one that asks, how far will you go to become more than you are, and what will you lose in the process? Last in this section, I have The Dream Hotel, a novel by Leila Lalami. In The Dream Hotel, Lalami crafts a chilling near-future thriller where even our dreams are no longer private and freedom becomes a haunting question. Museum archivist Sarah Hussain returns from a work conference, only to be pulled aside by agents of the Risk Assessment Administration, the RAA, who inform her that an algorithm analyzing her dreams has flagged her as a potential future criminal and that she must be placed under observation. She's confined in a retention center alongside other dreamers, where the rules shift daily and even the slightest deviation can extend her stay indefinitely. Through this eerie setup, Lalami explores surveillance, algorithmic bias, identity, and the precariousness of justice in a society that trades privacy for security. The prose is taut and unnerving, the scenario disturbingly plausible. The novel's tension comes not just from Sarah's fight for autonomy, but from how easily an individual can be subsumed by systems that claim objectivity but carry embedded prejudice. So those were my favourites, science fiction and fantasy books of 2025. Next, for business and leadership, I have Super Agency, What Could Possibly Go Right with Our AI Future, a nonfiction book by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and Greg Beato. Both authors argue that rather than viewing artificial intelligence primarily as a threat, society should embrace it as a powerful amplifier and access tools that were once reserved for elites. They use historical examples of previous technological revolutions, like the printing press and electricity, to illustrate how society feared change, but ultimately benefited, suggesting AI could follow a similar arc. Central to the book is the idea of a techno-humanist compass, that our design, governance, and deployment of AI should be guided by human values and a desire to increase freedom and agency, not diminish it. Practical scenarios are offered. AI tutors tailoring education to every student. Researchers accelerating cures for diseases. Everyday people using AI assistants to navigate complex life systems. Both authors also acknowledge real risks: job displacement, bias, disinformation, but argue that the overriding narrative should shift from fear to proactive shaping of the future. They advocate for adaptive governance rather than rigid regulation. Systems that evolve with the technology rather than stifle it. Ultimately, super agency presents AI not as a substitute for human thought, but as a partner, one that, when properly shaped, can unlock a future where more people have more power to act, create, and make meaningful change. Second, I have Making It Big, Lessons from a Life in Business. Femi Otedola offers a compelling blend of memoir and business manual that tracks his rise from modest beginnings in Lagos to becoming one of Africa's most influential entrepreneurs. Released in August 2025, the book details his early ventures into oil and gas, his transformation of companies like Fort Oil and Gerugu Power, and the formidable setbacks he faced, losses that threatened his empire and required strategic reinvention. The narrative is candid. Otedola doesn't shy away from the risks, the debt, the currency crises, and the shifting regulation that typify doing business in Nigeria. What sets the book apart is its dual focus, not just on achieving wealth, but on building a legacy through philanthropy, education, and giving back to the continent. The lessons are practical and global: how to spot opportunity, how to pivot when momentum falters, how leadership in unstable markets demands agility and moral clarity for aspiring entrepreneurs. Making It Big positions itself as more than an autobiography. It's a blueprint for business leaders in emerging markets. For the reader interested in leadership, resilience, and the interplay between enterprise and purpose, this is a textured, energizing, and uncommonly transparent read. I hope you enjoy it. Next, I have The 7 Rules of Trust: Why It Is Today's Most Essential Superpower, by Wikipedia co-founder Jimmy Wales. In The 7 Rules of Trust, Jimmy Wales draws on his experience founding Wikipedia, a global platform dependent on people trusting strangers online, to present a powerful blueprint for rebuilding trust in business, leadership, and society. He argues that trust isn't a static asset, but a dynamic, living thing that must be cultivated, protected, and renewed. Rules such as be civil, be transparent, and others that form the backbone of his thesis about creating lasting systems of trust. Wales highlights how Wikipedia's early adoption of principles like assuming good faith, open accountability, and transparent governance served as the foundation for a community that now sees billions of page views monthly. Against the backdrop of widespread institutional mistrust from media to corporations to governments, the book is both hopeful and hands-on, offering something immediate for anyone looking to lead, build culture, or restore credibility in chaotic times. Next, I'd love to share my favorite 6 young adult novels of 2025. First, I have Ketabasis, a novel by R.F. Kuang of Yellowface fame. Ketabasis, from the Greek word for descent, is a term often used in literature and mythology to describe a journey into the underworld or into the realm of the dead to gain knowledge, confront loss, or achieve transformation. Set in the elite halls of Cambridge's fictional department of analytic magic, Ketabasis follows doctoral student Alice Law as she descends into hell to rescue her late advisor. Joined reluctantly by her rival Peter Murdoch, Alice navigates 8 infernal circles that mirror the brutal realities of academia, ruthless competition, bureaucratic despair, and obsession with reputation, as they confront magical paradoxical challenges both characters are forced to examine: ambition, identity, and the cost of pursuing excellence. Blending dark fantasy, high-concept magic, the novel explores how far one will go for validation, achievement, and self-discovery. Next, I have Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, set in the summer of 1980. And one of the characters is an astrophysicist, Joanne Goodwin, who, once content teaching at Rice University, spots an advertisement that changes everything: a call for women scientists to join the NASA Space Shuttle program. Selected from thousands, she begins rigorous training at Houston's Johnson Space Center, alongside a diverse cohort: Top Gun pilot Hank Redmond, engineer Vanessa Ford, scientist John Griffin, mission specialist Lydia Danes, and warm-hearted Donna Fitzgerald. As these unlikely friends prepare for their first flights, Joanne discovers not only the thrill of space, but also an unexpected love in Vanessa. A love that shifts her sense of identity and place in the universe. Joanne questions everything she believes about her work, her family, especially her niece, Frances, and what it means to reach for something bigger than herself. Then, in December 1984, aboard mission STS-LR9, everything changes in an instant. The mission's shocking turn forces Joanne and all involved to confront the fragility of life, love, and the atmosphere that holds us together. At its heart, the novel is about yearning, sacrifice, and how the invisible atmosphere of connection between people can be as vital as oxygen in space. Next, I have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I'm really excited for this one, not only because I really love reading Rebecca Yarros, but also we share a publisher, Piatkus. Yes, Piatkus is the publisher of my own book, Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading. So I feel like this is an extra special book for me. So Onyx Storm, this is the third installment of the Empyrean series, and the protagonist, Violet Sorrengail's journey, takes a darker, more desperate turn as she steps beyond the Academy's walls and into a war-ravaged world where dragons, magic, and politics collide. No longer a novice, Violet must now navigate shifting alliances among kingdoms, ancient prophecies, and the threat of the Venin, magic-wielding enemies, whose rise signals the end of the status quo. Alongside her dragon, Endana, Violet seeks the seventh breed of dragon, pursues answers about hidden powers, and confronts the toll of war on her friends, her mentor, and the man she loves. The stakes are personal and epic. Betrayal touches her closest companions. The magic system expands, and the world's foundation trembles under a storm that might consume everyone. The novel balances high-octane battles and political maneuvering with emotional weight, trauma, loyalty, choice, and sacrifice. The ending leaves readers on a cliffhanger. The tempest still raging, setting the stage for the next chapter in the saga. Next on my list, I have Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, a novel by Grady Hendrix. In Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, Hendrix transports readers to the sweltering summer of 1970 in Florida, where 15-year-old Neva Craven is sent to the remote Wellwood House, a maternity home for unwed mothers. Renamed Fern and stripped of her identity and autonomy inside the home, Fern meets other girls in similar plight. Rose, Zinnia, Holly, all living under the strict control of adults who dictate their bodies, their movements, and their futures. When a traveling library van arrives and Fern is handed a book titled How to Be a Groovy Witch, the girls begin experimenting with witchcraft, discovering a sliver of power in a place built to deny them any. But magic comes with a cost. As the girls learn, the price of reclaiming agency in a confining system is high. And the horror isn't just supernatural. It's embedded in the historical injustice, the bodily horror of forced pregnancies, and the silencing of young women. With Hendrix's characteristic blend of folk horror, feminist bite, and historical weight, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls veers its way into memory. It's as much a reckoning with systemic oppression as it is a chilling, haunting ride. For something a bit more upbeat, I have The Bones Beneath My Skin, a novel by T.J. Klune. In the spring of 1995, journalist Nate Cartwright has lost everything. His parents are dead, his brother has disowned him, and he's been fired from his job in Washington. Seeking refuge, he retreats to his family's summer cabin in the Oregon woods. Instead of solitude, he finds the cabin already occupied by a brooding ex-Marine named Alex Weir, and a 10-year-old girl who calls herself Artemis Darth Vader, and who is far more mysterious and powerful than she first appears. Together, the three are thrust into a perilous road trip adventure. Cultists, government agents, and cosmic forces are closing in as Artemis's fate and identity becomes central to the survival of them all. Nate begins to form unexpected bonds with Alex, with Artemis, and with the possibility of a future he thought he'd never have. The narrative weaves sci-fi thrills, found family warmth, and emotional healing. In the end, the novel asks, what does it mean to be human, to be whole again, and what are we willing to fight for? And last in this young adult section, I have 3 Lives of Kate Kay by Kate Fagan. Protagonist and best-selling author, Kate Kay has captivated millions with her book trilogy and the blockbuster film adaptation. But no one knows who she really is. In truth, she was born Annie Callahan in upstate New York. Later reinvented herself as Cass Ford while working in a coffee shop and living out of a car after one tragic night changed everything. She carried her secret through identity changes, fame, love, and betrayal, hiding behind a persona as her career soared and her relationships fractured. As Kate prepares to publish her memoir and lay bare her story, she must grapple with the cost of adaptation, the toll of reinventing herself, and whether returning home is a path toward redemption. The novel weaves together themes of friendship, identity, fame, and the stories we tell ourselves and others about who we are. The next section on the best LGBTQIA+ books of 2025 is one of my favorites because there are some wonderful reads in there. So do take a look and see if you fancy reading any for the upcoming holidays. First in this section is The Sunflower Boys, a novel by Sam Wackman. Protagonist 12-year-old Artem lives in the Ukrainian city of Cherniv, spending his days helping on his grandfather's sunflower farm, drawing in his sketchbook, a gift from his father from far away in America. and swimming in the river with his younger brother Yuri. Artem also quietly grapples with his growing romantic feelings for his best friend Victor, an inner struggle made more urgent by a society where such feelings must stay hidden. Then, on a February night, war erupts. Russian forces invade, destroying Artem's home, killing his mother and grandfather, and leaving the two brothers to flee. Artem and Yuri embark on a harrowing journey across war-torn Ukraine, carrying little more than their backpacks, Artem's sketchbook, and each other as they strive to reunite with their father and find safety. Through the journey, Artem must protect Yuri, process grief and loss, and face questions of identity, belonging, and survival under the most brutal of conditions. Ultimately, the novel is a coming-of-age story, interwoven with queer love, sibling loyalty, and the spirit of Ukraine in wartime. A powerful, heartbreaking portrayal of how war can uproot everything, yet also how art, memory, and love persist. Next, I have We Do Not Part by Han Kang. Han Kang was the Nobel Prize winner of literature last year, and I'm so excited to share her most recent book, We Do Not Part. The protagonist of the book, Kyung-ha, a writer in Seoul, suffering from insomnia and haunting migraines, receives an urgent message from her old friend, Inseon, to fly to Jeju Island and care for her bird, Ama, after Inseon's accident. On arriving during a snowstorm, Kyung-ha finds herself plunged into a surreal white world, where reality warps and a long-buried family archive begins to surface. The woods around Inseon perhaps hold memories of the unspeakable. Inseon's mother's siblings were victims of the 1948-49 cover-up massacre on Jeju, and the land itself seems to bear the bones of the past. Through dreams, broken documents, and the slow unraveling of history, Kyung-ha and Inseon's friendship becomes entwined with the ghosts of violence, loss, and forgetting. Kyung-ha confronts the question, can the past help the present? Can the dead save the living? Ultimately, the novel is both a hymn to friendship and an indictment against forgetting, an exploration of how individual lives, memory, and historical trauma intertwine in the silent crevices of a winter landscape. I hope you enjoy it very much. Last in this section, and one of my favorites for this year, is The Emperor of Gladness, a novel by Ocean Vuong. This book has a protagonist called Hai, a 19-year-old who stands on the edge of a bridge in the rusting, post-industrial town of East Gladness, Connecticut, ready to end his life. Instead, he hears a voice, an elderly Lithuanian woman named Grazina, affected with dementia, who stops him and offers him a different path. Hai becomes Grazina's caretaker, moving into her home and taking a job at the local diner to survive. Over the next year, they build an unlikely, tender bond between youth and age, immigrant and domestic, addiction and memory. The novel follows their lives and the other marginal figures working in the diner. People scraping by, carrying hidden burdens, connected by loneliness, labor, and survival. Through Hai's struggle with addiction, immigrant family history, and the ghost echoes of war, and Grazina's unraveling dementia tied to her own survival of conflict, the book explores how we tell ourselves stories to stay alive how love, labor, loss, and memory intersect in the lives of those on society's edge. At its heart, the Emperor of Gladness asks what it means to live only once, and how the smallest acts of connection, a shared meal, a quiet promise, a job done in dim light, can become our second chances. My favourite quote from the book is, "Because to remember is to fill the present with the past," which meant that the cost of remembering anything at all, is life itself. We murder ourselves, he thought, by remembering. The next section is the best psychology books of 2025. There are so many wonderful psychology books that came out this year, it was impossible to double down on them. But I'm hoping that these picks are ones that resonate with you as well. So the first on my list is Ordinary Magic, the science of how we can achieve big change with small acts, by social psychologist Gregory Walton. In this book, he reveals how deceptively small shifts in mindset can produce profound changes in our lives. He argues that the big questions we all face, do I belong? Can I succeed? Am I loved? Often stem from ordinary situations, and that by recognizing and responding to these moments with clarity, we can unlock what he calls ordinary magic. Through engaging stories and psychological research, the book shows how small acts, a single choice word from a parent or teacher, a brief moment of reflective pause before a conversation, can create new trajectories for behavior and identity. Readers learn practical strategies for noticing the questions that hold them back, confronting them with empathy, and shifting their responses toward possibility and growth. Ultimately, Ordinary Magic promises that change isn't reserved for the few. When we understand how to work with the everyday, we can transform our relationships, our learning, our sense of self, and mesh the ordinary with the extraordinary. This next book, The Gift of Not Belonging, How Outsiders Thrive in a World of Joiners, by Dr. Rami Kaminsky, really resonated with me because on many occasions I have been that outsider. I have felt the absence of belonging, and I'm sure we all at some stage in our lives have felt this. So I felt like this was the perfect book to pick up in those moments. So in this book, psychiatrist Rami Kaminsky introduces the personality style that he calls the introvert, someone who never quite feels at home in any group, regardless of whether they're popular or socially engaged. He argues that in a culture which prizes belonging to families, to teams, to communities, introverts often feel misunderstood, and their sense of non-belonging can be a strength rather than a flaw. The book explores how introverts can flourish by embracing their independence, deep one-on-one relationships, and the freedom from needing group approval. Through case studies, psychological insights, and cultural commentary, Kaminsky shows how outsiders often observe more clearly. They resist groupthink and contribute unique perspectives. Ultimately, the book is both a validation for people who felt like they've never fitted in and a guide for leveraging that difference, turning non-belonging into its own kind of belonging. Another equally helpful book in this selection was Life in 3 Dimensions by Shigeru Oishi. In this book, Oishi challenges 2 deeply ingrained assumptions about how to live well. that a good life is about happiness or that it's about meaning. While both have been staples of psychological research, he argues that each has its limits. Happiness can lead to complacency, and meaning can become narrow and constraining. Instead, Oishi proposes a third dimension: psychological richness. This concept emphasizes curiosity, a variety of experiences, perspective shifts, and embracing uncertainty. From small acts like changing your route home to major life changes like moving to a new country. Drawing on his own life, raised in a small Japanese town, later becoming a psychologist, and weaving in case studies from ordinary people to luminaries such as Steve Jobs and Oliver Sacks, Oishi shows how embracing challenge, surprise, and exploration can lead to a fuller, more authentic experience. With a clear, accessible style, the book invites readers not just to ask, what makes me happy or what is my purpose, but how many rich experiences can I pack into life? In doing so, it offers practical suggestions for cultivating psychological richness and living with more depth, flexibility, and resilience. This next book really struck a chord with me. Called Trust Your Mind, Embracing Nuance in a World of Self-Silencing by Janara Nirenberg, covers one of the most pressing issues of our era: the increasing phenomenon of self-silencing in a hyper-connected society. Rather than focusing merely on overt censorship, Nirenberg examines how individuals internalize the pressure to conform, limit their expression, and mute their voices to avoid backlash, exclusion, or conflict. Built on her background in journalism, psychology, and public health, Nirenberg explores how groupthink, fear of dissent, and the shrinking of conversational space are affecting not only public discourse, but personal well-being. From campuses and workplaces to social media and families, the book lays bare how the shrinking safe zone of expression influences identity, creativity, isolation, and mental health. Importantly, Trust Your Mind is not merely diagnostic, it offers a hopeful path forward. Nirenberg provides tools and frameworks for recognizing when one is silencing themselves, how to reclaim one's voice consciously and empathetically, and how to engage in authentic communication that fosters connection rather than polarization. In essence, the book is a call to trust one's mind, its doubt, impulses, and dissent, and to navigate a world where speaking up and listening both require courage. Next, I have a fascinating book on the brain, with more and more attention and focus going into brain research. Healing the Modern Brain by Dr. Drew Ramsey is very timely. In this compelling guide, psychiatrist Dr. Drew Ramsey argues that our modern world, with its stress, screens, isolation, and ever-expanding demands, has created a mental health landscape in which many of us feel off, even without a formal diagnosis. He proposes a proactive framework called mental fitness, not simply treating mental illness when it arises, but building habits and skills to keep our brain resilient, adaptable, and thriving. Across the book, Ramsey outlines 9 core tenets, drawn from neuroscience, epigenetics, nutrition, movement, connection, and mindset, that can help anyone cultivate brain health beyond crisis moments. He blends clinical case studies from his practice with accessible science, showing how lifestyle, diet, sleep, relationships, and environment, i.e. screen time, sedentary behavior, social fragmentation, directly affect brain structure, mood, and cognition. Ultimately, the book invites readers to stop looking for a magic pill and instead embrace a holistic, active approach, a brain that thrives through consistent practices, not just reactive treatments. Last in this section, and a favourite of mine, is A Trick of the Mind: How the Brain Invents Reality by Dr. Daniel Yon. In A Trick of the Mind, cognitive neuroscientist Dr. Daniel Yon explores one of the most provocative ideas in contemporary psychology: that our brains don't merely receive reality, they construct it. Drawing on decades of research, including his own work at the Uncertainty Lab at Birkbeck, Yon argues that the brain is essentially a skull-bound scientist, constantly building models of the world, updating them when new evidence arrives, and sometimes clinging to outdated or distorted models when uncertainty arises. He shows how this process of prediction and revision spans from everyday perception, why we see what we expect, to complex phenomena like belief, identity, and mental illness. For example, when expectations strongly dominate, the brain may ignore contrary sensory input, leading to hallucinations, conspiracy theories, or distorted self-views. The book blends engaging storytelling, ranging from medieval mystics and sports coaches to modern psychosis research, with rigorous science, making the case that understanding how our brain constructs reality can help us better understand others, shift our beliefs, and improve mental health. Now, I've always been a huge fan of the International Booker Prize. And the reason why is because I love international literature from all parts of the world and walks of life. So what I really enjoyed the most in pulling together was this next section, the best translated books of 2025. And the first on my list is, of course, the Booker winner this year, Heart Lamp, Selected Stories by Banu Mushtaq, translated by Deepa Bashti. This is a short stories collection of 12 tightly wound stories drawn from decades of writing, set in southern India and centered on Muslim and Dalit women, navigating faith, caste, desire, loss, and resistance. The characters are grounded in everyday life: marriage, the watch shop, motherhood, domestic risk. Yet the tone often carries a quiet urgency: how to live and speak beneath pressure. What unites them is the heart lamp of inner life, memory, longing, agency in the margin. Next in this list is On the Calculation of Volume 1, a novel by Salvej Barley, translated by Barbara J. Havland. This is a novel of dislocation, time loops, and the uncanny, in which a woman named Tara Selter finds herself slipping out of time. The book describes how one woman's fall through the cracks of time unfolds. The tone is poetic and fragmented. Ordinary domestic moments are repeated, yet each loop brings change. There's a sense that existence is hinged on the improbable. It plays with form, memory, and the experience of being unsettled in one's self. Next, I have a Latin American novel called We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara. And this is based on the historical figure of the lieutenant nun. This novel follows Antonio, born a girl disguised as a boy during the Spanish conquest of the Americas, now hiding in the jungle with two Guarani girls he rescued from enslavement. It is a reimagining of colonial history, gender transformation, and the wild, luminous space of the rainforest as a place of metamorphosis. The writing is baroque and surreal, weaving Latin prayers, Guarani language, and rebel myths into a confrontation with conquest and identity. Next is a really quirky novel called Hunchback by Sao Ichikawa, translated by Polly Barton. It's quite a short novel about a woman called Shaka Isawa, who is born with a congenital muscle disorder. She lives in a care home outside Tokyo. Online, she studies, tweets, and writes erotica until a new male carer reveals he has read it all. And Shaka responds with an unexpected proposal. The narrative is unflinching and darkly comic, dealing with disability, desire, autonomy, and the boundaries of life centered at humanity's edge. With razor-sharp voice and subversive energy, the novel dissects assumptions about body agency and the self. Last in this list, I have Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico, translated by Sophie Hughes. The book is a faint satire of the expat dream, exploring how alienation grows when authenticity is replaced by curated identity. Its tone is crisp, observant, and incisively aware of the creeping hollow of aestheticism. Set in Berlin and Lisbon, this novel follows Tom and Anna amid the shifting tides of globalization, gentrification, and social performance as the world remodels around them. Their intimate lives feel the pressure of perfection, becoming even more remote. The book is a faint satire of the expat dream, exploring how alienation grows when authenticity is replaced by curated identity. Its tone is crisp, observant, and incisively aware of the creeping hollow of aestheticism. Now for the best sports books of 2025. First on my list is Shot Ready. This is a memoir guide by Stephen Curry, and in this visually rich guide, NBA superstar Stephen Curry shares the philosophy behind his dominance on the court and beyond. With over 100 photographs, he opens up about his mindset of preparation, continuous improvement, creativity, joyful discipline, and mindfulness. Rather than simply recounting highlights, Curry invites readers into the work behind the scenes, showing how his habits, values, and connection to community fuel his success and how they can inspire anyone's journey. Next, I have Peak, the new science of athletic performance that is revolutionizing sports by Mark Bubbs. This is a deep dive into the latest scientific research on sports performance, health training, recovery, and mindset. Rather than simply recount stories of athletes, Bubbs pulls together academic, physiological, and nutritional insights to create a blueprint for how both elite and everyday athletes can reach new levels. And last on this list is a unique book on surfing titled Capturing Kahanamoku, How a Surfing Legend and a Scientific Obsession Redefined Race and Culture by Michael Rossi. The book tells the story of Duke Kahanamoku, a Hawaiian surfing icon, and pairs his life and legacy with a modern scientific and cultural investigation of surfing, race, identity, and oceanic culture. It expands the typical sports biography into a culturally rich narrative about sport as meaning. Last, for something a little more worldly, is my best travel books of 2025 section. And in this, there is a selection of memoir and travel guides, as well as travel narratives and photo books. So I hope you really enjoy this diverse selection. First on the list is In Green, Two Horses, Two Strangers, A Journey to the End of the Land by Lewis D. Hall. This one depicts an extraordinary journey setting out from Italy's Apennine Mountains, where Louise D. Hall and his companion ride westward across Europe to Spain's Cap Finisterre, the end of the land. As landscapes shift from olive groves to wild coastlines, their fragile partnership is tested by exhaustion, weather, and the limits of endurance. Lyrical and meditative, In Green is an ode to slowness, nature, and human connection. A modern pilgrimage through geography and the soul. I hope you enjoy it very much. Next, I have The New Tourist, Waking Up to the Power and Perils of Travel, a travel memoir by Paige McClanahan. This is not your everyday travel guide or travel memoir. This is a sharp, global-looking book that examines how travel and tourism shape places and people. Through dispatches from destinations like Hawaii, Saudi Arabia, and Angkor Wat, McClanahan asks how tourists impact local cultures, economies, and environments, and argues for a more mindful new tourist. The next title is a little bit of a favorite of mine, particularly because I love to travel solo. So when The Lonely Planet published Women Travel Solo, 30 Inspiring Stories of Adventure, Curiosity, and the Power of Self-Discovery, I thought this had to be a Christmas present to myself this year. Essentially, it captures the stories of women who've traveled solo from Antarctica to Mongolia, from cycling across Europe to living nomadically in Asia. It's both inspiration and personal reflection. What they wish they knew, what they learned, and how solo travel changed them. Last year, I made a trip to Istanbul to promote the Turkish translation of my book, Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading, and I absolutely fell in love with the city. It truly is such a global melting pot of people with both history, culture, and gorgeous food. So when this travel guide and photo book covering Istanbul, published, titled Istanbul, the City of the World's Desire, a photo travel experience by Andrei Vlasov, I knew I had to have this on my coffee table. This is a photo-rich travel experience book which invites you to the heart of Istanbul through hundreds of high-resolution images capturing the city's layered identity, from Ottoman palaces to modern life, bridging Europe and Asia. And its minimal text allows the imagery to speak for itself, making it as much visual art as travel narrative. If you haven't been to Istanbul, get a copy of this book, and secondly, book your trip to Istanbul because it truly will open your eyes to an incredible culture where there's a sense of belonging for everyone. And last, I have The Last American Road Trip, which is a travel memoir by Sarah Kendzior. Kendzior takes to America's highways with her husband and children in tow and is determined to show them the country that she loves, even as it strains under political, environmental, and social upheaval. The family's road trips span from Missouri outward through national parks, Route 69, historical landmarks, and forgotten American corners. While Kendzior confronts rising autocracy, the pandemic's upheaval, and the shape of home in deeply divided times. This is part memoir, part travelogue, and part political history. The book is really a promise to her children that the America they inherit will be worth knowing, even while Kendzior struggles to believe it herself. I hope you enjoy it. And finally, no best books list would be complete without a section on the best food and cookbook recommendations of 2025. So here's my verdict on my favorite 3 cookbooks and food memoirs this year. First, I have Third Culture Cooking, Classic Recipes for a New Generation, this is a cookbook by Zainab Issa, and it's her debut book that blends her East African and South Asian heritage with her American upbringing. It features recipes like French onion ramen, tandoori tacos, and baklava granola. It's not just about recipes. It guides cooks on hosting, pantry essentials, and eating with your eyes. It's a great book to be savored, as well as sit on your kitchen shelf. Next, I have Good Things, recipes to share with people you love. This is by Samin Nasrat from Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat fame. And I was super excited when this one came out because I loved Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat so much. So in this one, Samin returns with a deeply personal, reflective, and beautifully designed exploration of how food connects us to each other. And rather than focusing purely on culinary technique, this book celebrates the rituals and relationships that give meals their true meaning, structured around seasons and occasions, from slow Sunday suppers to impromptu picnics, from the comfort of soup on a lonely evening to the abundance of a feast shared with friends. Each chapter offers recipes that are both practical and poetic. Think roasted citrus chicken with fennel and thyme for winter gatherings, saffron-spiked rice for celebration, and memory dishes inspired by the author's travels and fashion traditions. Interwoven with the recipes are essays and reflections on why we cook and how sharing food can heal, how rituals create belonging, and how to approach the kitchen, not as a chore but as a form of creativity and care. The writing is warm, witty, and quietly profound, blending culinary wisdom with the intimacy of a memoir. It's also lavishly photographed, and so it's much a work of art as it is a cookbook, inviting readers to slow down, light a candle, gather around a table, and rediscover the joy of simple shared meals. It really is a manifesto for cooking with intention, generosity, and love. And a reminder that what truly matters isn't just what's on the plate, but also the people and moments that surround it. And for the grand finale, the last book of this whole list and of this food section is Guts, a memoir of food, failure, and taking impossible chances by Melissa Leong. Melissa Leong, a food writer, TV personality, and former judge on MasterChef Australia, opens up in this memoir with startling honesty about the twists and turns of her life, from resisting her first dream of being a concert pianist through chronic pain to carving a distinctive path in the food world as a Singaporean Chinese Australian woman. Woven throughout are the twin themes of food and identity, kitchen farms, television studios, and even abattoirs, which become the stages on which she confronts racism, body image, mental health challenges, and the pressure to perform. Her narrative chronicles both the adrenaline of success and the rawness of failure, refusing to gloss over the dark moments of abuse in the hospitality industry and the cost of reinvention. Yet, Leong also celebrates food's capacity to heal, connect, and anchor. The book is punctuated with her favourite recipes, each serving as a metaphor for a chapter of her life. She invites readers to question their limiting self-beliefs, to take improbable chances, and to reclaim their story. Version after version, Leong offers a message. No guts, no glory. For anyone who has felt stuck, different, or under pressure, Guts is both a confession and a call to courage. And so, my friends, this is the end of the whole list. 40 books for you to read, either this year in the coming holidays or next year. And I hope that you do get a chance to check out each and every one, or just the ones that resonate or connect with you and the genres that you like. And do let me know of your favorites and any that I've missed. I always love hearing from readers and I always reply back. Until next time, happy reading. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you'd like to sign up to our online courses or try a personalised book prescription or bibliotherapy session, you can do so following the links in the show notes. And as always, I love hearing from listeners, so don't hesitate to drop me an email at bijal@bookTherapy.io.